Ken Winnell,
I'm here.
tell us about yourself.
Do I need an introduction? No, I also work with Mike Benio at Nexus Digital. And as he said, we are focused almost exclusively on digital transformation and helping companies recognize and add value by using different technologies. In this case, AI has been at the forefront of our focus for the past 2 years of, as the technologies are emerging and it's upending a lot of business practices and thoughts. So we're anxious to hear what you guys are facing and challenges that you're seeing. And we have the pleasure of working in the brain trust, so to speak, between Lee and Amy and Sherry and a couple of other folks at Grayson, where we can have these free-form discussions about, activities that we're observing or things that are happening in the industry and how AI is taking shape. I'm going to be on a panel February 6th. Discussing AI with some government folks for regulatory things. And there's also on the same day, there's also I sent to a couple folks an invite for the Washington Post, because you're going to start to see media and a few other places like TED Talks will really expand rapidly in, imparting knowledge and things that are happening with AI, especially as AI starts moving towards artificial general intelligence. And the push is on to try to get, some of that out, but for the end of the year. If you talk to some of the folks at OpenAI, and they'll tell you this. So it's really we're at the cusp. We're at the very beginning stages of where AI can really be transformative.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Ken. Shashi, I know you've got some input and some updates for us.
I was gonna just talk about, or maybe next week, but I think just in summary, on the internal Blackstone+Cullen GPT that we're building, what we realized was with these documents, as you scale out, we are trying to build a portal, information with everything in our portal, all the documents, emails. But as you scale out to a certain point, we realized even using some of the techniques such as vector DBs for semantic search, we hit limits where the responses may not be exactly what you were expecting. So, and then we're looking at ways to overcome that over the next week.
So let me explain a little bit about the project Shashi and I are trying to do. We are trying to capture the background. I guess a simple way of saying it is to try to create a digital twin for me with the 35 years that I've had in Blackstone+Cullen. And it's the same problem that every company has when somebody transitions out of a company. How do you capture all of that data? And so somebody can come back and say, well, if Lee was here now, how would he handle this problem? And that's what we're trying to do. So that's a non-trivial problem as we're finding to try to attack. So we're taking a lot of the learnings that we've had in other areas, and we're actually building this on a machine that is not on the public GPT sites. We're able to download the models, and we have looked at probably 25 different models. Right now we're using Mixtral, and that seems to be working pretty well for us right now. The speed we're getting out of that machine is twice as fast as the speed that you typically get out of GPT-4, which is about 40 to 45 tokens a second. We're getting a little over 90 tokens a second right now out of the machine that we built, which is a super fast consumer computer with dual 4090 cards in it that we're using for running these engines. So because we don't have to share it, we're able to get really good speed out of it. And I'm very, very impressed with the speed that we're getting. So today we were going to talk about AI for personalization of various things, and I'll call it at scale. And we look at that as a game changer, because I started looking at what's the holy grail of sales. Number one, to try to figure out what somebody's going to buy, when they're going to buy it, who's going to buy it, how much they want to spend for it. Is that going to tie into the major initiatives that they have in their company? And do I have the right salesperson calling on them to sell them the right product? And that's a hard group of things to try to figure out. And I'll tell you that one of the things we did yesterday that was a lot of fun is John Yates is the partner at Morris Manning and Martin. And what I did is I went and had the systems or the internet or GPT or whatever you want to call it, look up John Yates and say, give me a summary of his profile. And it gave me a summary. And I said, now give me a 10-point personality style. And it gave me a 10-point personality style of John. Then I said, draw me a picture in photorealistic form of John. And it did. And so then I pasted those 3 things together or 4 things together, and I sent it to John and I said, guess what? This is how the world views you. Here's your picture. And so I was joking with him. The guy in the picture was a year or 2 younger than John, but it was a lot of fun to be able to do that, and everybody got a lot of kicks out of it. But the point being, it wasn't just for that purpose. If you start looking at what you're able to do with things like that, it gets to be really amazing. Where you can actually go out and take a look at somebody's personality. You can get it from LinkedIn. Some of the tools will allow you to go inside LinkedIn and pull the profiles. Other tools won't let you do that. Sometimes you have to play a game and have the game go in and pull the profiles because it will change some of the way those engines work. So the first thing we did is in our little test case here, we pulled, we have a seamless AI where we can go out and pull in and download leads, if you want to think about it that way. It's an AI engine that goes out and crawls the web for people in companies of certain sizes, of certain industries. And there's about, I don't know, maybe 100 columns of things that you can get data on and sort on. And then what we did is we added a few more columns in there that said, okay, give me a summary of this guy's personality. And we were able to do that for those 100 folks. And then we said, now I need you to go ahead and write some letters. But before you do that, let me figure out who's going to call on this guy. So I took Ken's profile and I took my profile and came up with the personality profiles of each one of us. And I asked the system, now map Ken and me against these customers, and based on our personality type, which one should call on which customer. And I found that when I was running a large organization at Hewlett Packard, that was one of the most important things that you could do is map the personality and the background of your sales rep to the customer. And that was critical to our long-term strategy, and it worked really, really well. And so the next thing we did is we had the engine actually run Ken and I at or Ken and me against those 100 potential customers. And it came out and said, okay, based on your personality and their personality, this is the right person to call on it. And then we said, well, if we were going to sell, and I used our product Glimpse, Advanced What If Analytics, if we were going to sell this product to the customer, to this customer, give me a letter, introductory letter on this product, using this person, Ken, talking to this person, Charlie, at the customer site, and go ahead and write that for me. And it did. And I said, well, while we're doing this, go ahead and write all 7 letters that you need for first touch. And it did. So was that trivial? No, it wasn't trivial. It took a fair amount of time to get through that. But let me get y'all's perspective, and that's where I'm going to stop right now, and just talk, let you guys talk about the things you think are interesting, important, or things we need to stay away from when it comes to things like that. And I'm going to start with Amy because I know she's going to tell me I probably shouldn't have been doing that. Amy?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. I mean, what everyone has to really keep an eye on is confidentiality. If you're putting something that's general into an open model, that's fine. It's general. You're not revealing any personally identifiable information. You're not revealing any, financial information of a business. If you're doing this from a hypothetical perspective with an open model, that's okay. The issue becomes when companies don't have what we call an acceptable use policy, which is the playbook that teaches everyone in the company which AI models they can use and for what business cases. So I had to sort of
Go into real deep thought about how this thing is working, and remember the fact that if you switch or they come out with a brand new model of something like Gemini, it's not going to remember anything that you've ever done before. Okay, so just remember that if you go back to when GPT 3.5 was out and everybody went to 4.0, nothing that you had put into 3.5 was still there. So you had to retrain everything that was going on. So, Brett Sklar, what thoughts do you have on this? This is right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I love the dialogue with Amy as well, about sort of what's okay, what's not okay. What I like to do is frame it a little bit different. And I say that there's a bunch of stuff that happens at the front of the cash register, and there's some stuff that happens behind the cash register. And obviously, none of us really have cash registers anymore, but it's the idea of it being sales and marketing public focused versus what's, where the sausages are being made and where the privacy really needs to be there. So I talk about the idea of when you think of AI and when you're building your AUP, which by the way, Amy, I tell everybody that the first step is if you don't have an AI AUP, you're kind of screwed. And I'd be happy to recommend you, to solve that problem. Also, Lee, I mentioned you. I spoke to a group in Philly, and somebody was asking about how to build their own LLM box, and I gave them your name, and I said you're doing some pretty innovative things there. But
Brett?
when I talk about the AUP, I talk about the fact that you have to think about things as sort of outside the firewall and inside the firewall, and in this case, it's outside and publicly accessible information versus what's inside and private information. So I think this is and I really like these steps, but that's how I approach it with people.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Adam, how about you?
Sorry, it took me a second to get off mute there. So I understand the point in terms of personality styles. I would differ a little bit in trying to map the ideal salesperson to a particular personality style, because in my opinion and my experience, there are there are a lot more important aspects that need to be looked at in terms of how to find the right person to work necessarily with a company, not necessarily with a person, especially in this day and age where so many decisions are made by committee, and we've really gotten away from the single person ultimately deciding what course of action a company is going to take. So, I think in terms of using engines that way, we focused at Belmore more on how do I train and educate my sellers to speak more intelligently in front of their customers. So as an example, we focused really on the technology space and